thousand flowers everywhere, this butterfly. Boom! Got a fist of power, you can fight me, but you can't close these eyes. Blinded by my light, bigger in my hands. The joy is in the fight. Break the best in the day. Watch out because I don't hold back. Keep pressing cause I'll never crack. Bursting with color I stand. I'm kicking down the gates of hell. I got you underneath my spell. Built up the hell, went to heaven, now I'm breaking in. Hey, 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 time to put your metal to the test now. Hey, 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 don't you know you're messing with the best now? Hey, 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 time to put your metal to the test now. Hey, 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 don't you know you're messing with the best now? Hey, 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 time to put your metal to the test now. Hey, 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 don't you know you're messing with the best now?
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Looks like I'm here with Mr. Silent Crow.
Gosh, it's not a stream if nothing goes right, right? Mute buttons, they're important to press again. How you doing, everybody? I am Dr. Crow, your host for this evening. Welcome to Crow's Comic Chat. I am joined here today by John's Longbox, the author for Heroic Tales, now funding on Fund My Comic. Actually, funding wrapped up. It's fully released, isn't it?
It's people are getting it. Yeah, the fulfillment is done. It's everything's out, but you could still get it. I overprinted because that's what you do. You're hopeful. I was hoping to sell more when issue 2 comes out, so I still got a stack of all 5 covers available. If anybody wants to go to Fund My Comic and buy them, you'll get sent out the next day.
I'm definitely going to have to pick one of those up then.
Yeah.
How are we doing today, chat? Welcome to the carnival. Today we're talking comics. Of course, it's Sunday. What better day to talk about comics than Sunday, right?
Yeah, every day's good to talk about comics.
Yeah. So, John, let's let my chat know who you are, just in case they're not aware.
Okay, I am John from John's Longbox. I have a YouTube channel called John's Longbox, and I guess my origin story is during COVID, there was a lockdown, and my wife and I were trapped in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. She was working from home. I'm a construction worker. I was working on the New Jersey Bridge, and I was coming home every day and having to sit there and be quiet because my wife was working, and there just seemed to be no end in sight. And I was like, honey, we got to get out of here. Queens is becoming unbearable. Nobody's moving. Restaurants are closing. I'm like, whatever. So we bought a house out here in the sticks, and I fixed up this big basement. And I said, I don't know anybody, and COVID still go. I was like, I guess the only way to make friends and talk about comics is go on YouTube. So I started up a YouTube channel, and if you watch my early videos, it's me talking really quiet and whispering into a shaky phone. I didn't know what I was doing. I had, no joke, for 2.5 years, I had 86 subscribers. Most of them were my family and friends who didn't even watch the videos. And then RJ from the Fourth Age just took a liking to me. We talked, and then he said, let me interview you as practice because I want to start doing interviews. And then that started like, hey, I want to interview people. And then I just started asking people. Now my show is known for talking to people about comic book, because I used to just, pick up a comic book, do a 10-minute video pre-recorded, and now nobody watches those videos anymore. And it's me talking to people. I've been very persistent and very lucky. I got like Mark Miller, Jim Shooter, Walt Simonson, Fabian Nizieta, Tom DeFalco, Diab DeMatteis, just big comic book names coming on my channel. As long as I've also, this is going to sound snooty, but I've also had fans. people who just like comics and want to talk, because that's what it's about. You don't have to be a pro to sit and talk with me. So I just like talking about comics, you know. And then when I saw RJ started making a comic, I was like, you know, I could do a comic too. I've been writing scripts for a while. You know, I play a role-playing game of superhero role-playing. It's like Dungeons & Dragons, but it's a superhero game. So I started writing scripts, and then I reached out to people, and next thing you know, I started making a comic, and it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of fumbling. You know, your first issue, you don't even know what you don't know yet. Like, you know, I didn't even know that I needed pre-press. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to transfer files. Oh my God, that was a nightmare. But you know, now I've done it all by myself. Well, I've hired an artist, I hired a colorist, I hired, you know what I mean? But every step of the way, yeah. I've done it now, and now I'm ready for issue 2. We're about, I'd say about a third of the way finished on issue 2 already. I'll probably start the campaign for that mid-January. I don't want to do it during Christmas. And you know, I fulfilled it all on myself, sitting in this chair. You know, just fulfilled. Everything's out, and that's me. That's my origin story. You know.
And it's a good origin story. I like it. Yeah. And being trapped in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens, no less.
Right. COVID. You know, so I was going to work. You know, my wife and I would like after dinner, like, let's go for a walk. We were getting stir crazy. So we'll walk around Queens. People will pull it up to us going, put your mask on. I'm like, dude, I'm with my wife. You know, like, leave me, like, stop being a newsie. And then I was like, let's go to our favorite restaurant. Let's go to our favorite. So we drive up to the favorite restaurant. It was closed. So I called up, and they're like, yeah, it's never opening again. It's done. COVID. Oh. So I'm like, what are we paying exorbitant in New York City? You know, and I had a D&D group. They're like, no, we're not coming out again ever. As far as I know, they still shut-ins. So I'm like, what am I doing? So I moved out here to Suffolk, and everybody's normal. You know, I already have 2 different role-playing game groups. I have a third V&V group. You know, Tuesdays, Mondays, and Saturdays I play games with people. You know, so, and I got a house, a YouTube channel. I made a comic book. So just look at it, you know.
I love hearing COVID stories of people picking up hobbies out of the boredom, because some of them have picked up really fun stuff.
Well, you know, I like to talk to people, and I like to talk about comic books. You know, one of the things I loved, I worked at a comic book store. I think I worked at 4 different comic book stores all over the country. And I loved when people would come in and just start talking, oh man, did you read that thing about Iron Man and, you know, Spider-Man, and who would win this fight, Batman or Spider-Man? And we just have nerdy talks, and I missed it. So, you know, so that's what this is. This is just a proxy to talk to you guys about. And when I say you guys, I mean anybody. You want to talk about, like, I have open shows on my channel. You know what I mean? Like I do It's Clobbering Time on Friday nights, where we pick 2 comic characters and, you know, figure out who would win in a fight. That's an open invite. Dr. Crow, you could join in. Anybody could join in, and, you know, don't take it too seriously that you're going to get mad. You know, right. But I'll do like I call it Hogging the Covers, where we just show off our favorite comic book covers, and it's just you talk for 10 minutes. I don't care who you are, Chuck Dixon or Phil Moskowitz, you know, just talk about it. And then, you know, just things like that. It's about talking about comic books. You want to talk about comic books? Come on my channel. Sometimes I talk board games. You see, I got board games behind me. And once in a while,
you're an avid gamer.
I'm sorry.
All right. Do you play you got a lot of board games?
Yeah.
You mention that you played a superhero RPG. Was it Mutants and Masterminds or Champions?
It was Villains and Vigilantes.
Villains and Vigilantes.
Yes.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, nobody did. I bought, no joke, I bought 7 copies back in 1983. I've kept them bagged and boarded, and as they fall apart from use, I pull out another one. I think this is my 3rd or 4th. You know, and it came out in 1983. It was $5 for this book, and this was all you needed to play. So I think that killed the company. It wasn't like Dungeons and Dragons, where you needed to keep buying supplements and adjustments and new books and new editions.
Books, you know, new editions, minimum 3 books.
You know, so, but there is a bunch of like modules. There's a bunch of supplements that you can buy. And Dan Panosian got his start making this. Why can't I think of the other? Bill Willingham rather got to start doing this. And why can't I think of the other guy who got to start doing this? You know, And I just love playing this game. And while I'm talking about it, see, for my comic book Heroic Tales, I made cards, and then on the back of the cards, I put their V&V stats. So I'm kind of hoping maybe people will pick up. It's because you could still go to Fantasy Games Unlimited and buy this rule book for $5, and you could play the Patriarch, my character in your game. Here's his stats. You know.
We got a question from the chat. Sheepless Dreamer over on the Twitch. So are you a fan of more the classic Western superhero comics?
Yes. I'm 56. I'll be 57 next week. I don't have anything against manga. I don't have anything against anime. I just don't know it. When I was a kid, you know, in the 80s, they Eclipse Comics and First Comics brought over the first manga comics like a Lone Wolf and Cub, My the Psychic Girl, Area 80, and I loved them. But I guess they didn't sell, you know, and then they were gone. Nowadays, you can walk into any store and buy them, you know. And what I like about manga, let me backtrack a bit. I got 55 nieces and nephews. None of them read comic books, except for one. I found out he reads The Walking Dead. The rest all read manga. 55. We're talking from 40 years old to in diapers. You know, not one of them, except for one, he only reads The Walking Dead because he liked the TV show. So there you go. You know. Is there any underrated comic series that you think deserves more recognition? Oh, absolutely. Of course, I got to say my comic, Heroic Tales, available on Follow My Comic. But to be serious, there's Wolf and Batsy by Brian Bow.
That's a personal favorite.
You could. He used to be on Alterna Comics. That's how I found out about him. His comic is a classic werewolf and a vampire. It's in black and white. It's supposed to like have the Hammer horror film, you know, experience. I love that comic. You could go to brianbow.net and pick up all of his comics. Another one is Horace H. Hoover by my buddy Fabrizio Aiello. His comic is about it's set in the 20s New York. He's an occult investigator who wears a helmet that resembles a vacuum cleaner. And it's a 5-issue series that you could get on HoraceHoover.net or .com. Yeah, but if you Google Horace H. Hoover, I love these comics. There's so many great comics that are, and most of them are in this indie scene. If you go through my back catalog every week, you'll see some sort of comic that I hope catches your eye. There's so many good. Oh, Dave Brink of Genuine Comics has a comic called Perfect 10, which to me, because it's self-serving to promote myself, is the best Western American superhero comic book coming out right now. And the guy's from the Netherlands, so go figure. It's so good. So good. And that I think that's available right now. GenuineComics.com. Heroenberg over here, I see in the comments. He's got a comic. I think it comes out yearly. It's fun. He does a live action TV show where actresses dress up as superheroes and they act them out and fight. You know, there's so many, and these are all people that I've met through doing this channel. You know, comics I never would have heard of because I was about to give up with comics. I got real tired of Marvel and real tired of DC. You know, they like even before they started getting political. I'm sorry.
There's no comfortable way of putting it. It was just bad.
Yeah. This is your channel. I'm trying not to be disrespectful, but even before they got,
you ain't gonna ruffle any feathers here.
Politics that I can't stand. I quit because, like, Denny O'Neil, the editor for one of the legendary, when he died, to me it was like a bookend in comic books. He was the last lifer, and he used to say that he was not the editor of Batman, he was the custodian of Batman, and it was his job to keep Batman as a viable, sellable product, so that other people in the future could buy houses, could put their kids through college, could, you know, buy cars. You know what I mean? So he respected the character that much, and he made sure that his writers and artists respect. But now it's like after he left the DC, like they rebooted the continuity, they started changing it. And I'm not even talking like race swapping and gender swapping and sexuality. I'm just talking like breaking continuity, and that bothered. So I quit Marvel and DC in 2015, and then thank God I did, because by 2017 it was all race, gender swaps, and you know, it really. But you know, and I was like almost done with comics, but I still like comics. I still talk about old comics. Like just today, I did a hour-long show about Marvel team up. You know, I just so yeah, no, I could pontificate forever. So there you go.
There's a lot of charm to be found in the old comics.
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of the discussion, it kind of gets lost in like the whole
lot of
woke,
crap.
anti-woke, all that sort of stuff. But the recent comics, it's just bad on every count. Just
Well,
bad story and period.
there's still good new comics. Like
Yeah.
like over here, I got a stack of new comics. Like I still get anything by Stan Sakai, I think is pronounced his name. He does like Usagi Yojimbo. That's still one of my favorite comics. I get anything by Mike Mignola, like in the Hellboy universe. Tim Seeley does a comic called Local Man that I really like. That's by Image Comics. Anything by Mark Miller, he's a guy who gets comics. So there are good stuff. But, just like when I was in the 80s and 90s and I was into punk rock, I used to look for every band. Nowadays, I know that there's still good bands out there. It's just, I don't have the energy to look for more like I used to.
Yeah, and if somebody like is avid into comics like you is not looking for them, the mainstream normal person isn't going to be looking for them either.
Well, the mainstream normal is actively chasing people away from comics.
Yeah.
You think with billion-dollar movies, they would, like when in 1989 when the Tim Burton Batman movie came out, when you walked out of the movie theater, they had comic books in the movie theater. They were made for the movie, Batman comics. They had, Michael Keaton dressed up in the uniform, and people bought those comics. You know what I mean? Like now you see an Avengers movie, you walk out. Why aren't there Avenger comics in every movie theater? Why not? You go into any toy store and there's Avengers toys, action figures all over the place. Why aren't there comic books?
I remember very distinctly when the second Spider-Man, Sam Raimi Spider-Man came out, there was a tie-in comic for it.
Right.
I remember picking that up at the local library.
Right.
When I don't even remember.
But nowadays, like my friend closed down his comic book store, but he said once a week, like clockwork, a family would come in, a mother, a father, a son or a daughter, or any combination of that would come in and like, yeah, we just saw the new Marvel movies. We just saw Doctor Strange. We're going to get a comic book. And they go to pick up, Thor. Thor was cool. And they pick up the new Thor. And it's like, who's this woman that's Thor? It's like, oh, that's Jane Foster. Oh, Thor's a woman? Not just a woman. She also has cancer. And they're like, okay.
And
Okay,
that's
Iron
exactly
Man.
how
I like
I got
Robert
it.
Downey Jr. It's like, oh, who's this? Who's this? This, oh, it's not Tony Stark. It's a 14-year-old black girl. Okay, why is she calling herself Iron Man? Bigot. Don't question it. And he said that they would just walk out with like a pack of Pokemon cards and never see them again.
Yeah, that's how I got lost on the mainstream comics too. For a long time, as a kid, parents weren't buying me the comics. It's like, you'll get whatever we kind of shows, and they were like, Sonic's a good one. You like the Sonic games, so I had those comics.
And also, like I remember this is gonna date, but I used to go into 7-Eleven with my mom. This is the 70s. That's how old I am. And my mom would buy a pack of Kent Kings. I remember distinctly. A pack of Kent Kings was $1.75. This is a pack of cigarettes for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. And she would give me the quarter, and I would go over to the newsstand and buy a comic book. I was like looking forward. Mom, you need cigarettes? Let's go get cigarettes. Every time my mom went to buy cigarettes, I got a comic book. Nowadays, you can't use the change for crap to buy a comic book.
No.
How much is how much is a
$5.
regular comic book? Forgive me. I'm coming over a cold, so I'm going to be blowing my nose to this whole thing. Forgive me.
It's all right. I'll use it as a moment where I can talk. Yeah, but I was like, when I was finally got my own job and was able to make my own money, I was like, you know what? I'm really liking the Marvel movies. Let's go get a comic.
Yes.
It's like $3.50 for a comic, and it's not even Iron Man. It's like, why would I want to read this?
Right. And then if you remember, I think it was 2019 or 2020. I forget what year it was, but they have a retailer summit right before the comic convention, right before Comic-Con. And I was lucky enough to go there one year, in the 90s. It was probably like 92 when I worked at the comic store. Back then, it was just like, the biggest problem was American flag wasn't selling too well, and people like, I got so many American flag comics, I'm using them to be door stoppers. And they're like, yeah, well, Howard Chaykin's coming. Like they were like scared of the retailers. They're like, you asked for it, you got it. Now in 2018, people started complaining about comics. They're like, shut up, bigots. Shut up. And it's like, well, I guess I'm going to close my doors and not sell comics anymore.
I had another question from Sheepless Dreamer. Aside from superhero comics, what other comics you're like more cartoonish ones like Archie?
I'm one of 7 kids. So there was always comic books in my house. My two older sisters loved Archie. And again, back in the 70s when I was a little kid, comic books were disposable. Like even anybody could afford a quarter for a comic book. So people would buy comics and they would just give them to me. So I had a huge collection of Archies. I had a huge collection of Hot Stuff, Wendy, what's the ghost guy? Casper the Ghost. And
Casper.
then there was the Little Devil guy, all those Harvey comics. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I had sci-fi. There was the only thing I wasn't into, and I regret, because was westerns and war comics. Now I'm going back into old DC's western and war comics. DC must have been two companies at the time because their superhero comics in the 70s were kind of childlike, but their western and war comics were really like adult, not porn adult, but like adult sophisticated storytelling. And I'm so now it's like they're like $3 or $4 an issue, and I could collect these weird western and Jonah Hex comics that I never read as a kid. Yeah. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, yeah, I love comic books as a medium. I'm a big fan of comics for children. Matter of fact, you just had a Keith Gleason on your channel, right?
Yeah, that was about a year ago or so. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I just had him on my channel last week.
Yeah,
he does a comic called The Mighty Mascots, which is
it's a wonderful comic. I highly recommend everybody go get Mighty Mascots. I got actually the stack of them right here in arm's reach.
Yeah, I just backed because I got the first 4 or 5 issues from Alterna, and then when he left Alterna, sadly I kind of lost track of them. It's easy to do. It was, no offense, I enjoyed the comics. So now he has a campaign right now on Kickstarter. So go to Kickstarter, look at Mighty Mascots, and it's like the breakfast mascot cereals come to life. So like Sugar Bear, Toucan Sam, Snap, Crackle, Pop, and they're superheroes. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon. But I think that's great because, the average age of comic book readers shouldn't be 56-year-old men. It should be kids. But there's 2 factors. They're too expensive and they're not available. Kids aren't going to just, wake up and go like, you know what, I'm going to go out of my way to find something that I don't know exists that I can't afford. They gotta get comics into kids' hands,
That's one of the reasons why I'm such a big proponent for web comics, the online comics, online digital comics, because kids will probably read those. But I'm running into issues where like the big guys, webtoons, and that they don't want to push child friendly content. A lot of their big stuff, it's romance because webcomics is, for some reason, it's found its audience with younger female readers, like young adult.
When you say romance, you mean like dirty or just?
It can get there.
Okay.
It gets questionable. Depends on the type. A lot of it's not safe for work.
I mean, I'm not prudy. There's, I got comics like Omaha the Cat Dancer and Love and Rockets that openly has, sex and sexuality and weird themes, but I know what I'm getting when I get it. Like, I don't want like to give a kid a comic book and then find out that there's something not appropriate for a kid. My comic Heroic Tales is going to be, it's all ages in that like an 80s Marvel comic. There's violence, there's fighting. He kisses his wife is sexy. You know what I mean? There's there's hints of sexuality, but it's nothing that you're not going to see even on like Johnny Bravo or something like that. Yep. These are my covers. These are my various covers. That's by Pat Broad. That is by Renzo. He's the regular interior artist. And when I asked him, I said, "You want to work on the cover?" He was like, "I get to do the cover." I was like, "Of course you get to. You're the best." To me, he's the best superhero comic book artist right now, and I'm lucky enough to be working with him. And he was just like, he never gets to do covers. I was like, "What are you, nuts?" And then if you scroll down, just for this, I have to sell. I did another cover by Pat Broderick, who's a legendary comic book artist. He's been doing Captain Marvel, Firestorm, Captain Atom, you name it, he probably drew it. He did fantasy, he did sci-fi. I love Pat Broderick's artwork. He's working with Mike Barron right now on Bronze Star. This is the back cover. I didn't want there to be an ad for Comics Wellspring on the back. They're a great company. Comics Wellspring printed my comic. I was a real pest calling them every day, asking them questions, and they were super nice. So guys, Comics Wellspring, they're made in America. I think it's Wisconsin. But I didn't want to put an ad for them, so I asked Renzo to draw this on the back because I wanted I wanted there to be an image that encapsulates what this comic is about. It's about fatherhood. I got real tired of all of this like toxic masculinity. So I wanted to make a guy who's the embodiment of positive masculinity. So the patriarch, I mean, you can't get more of a masculine name than that.
Yeah.
He's a father. He's a hero. He's a husband. He's a dad, you know, and he's good. He's not like Omni-Man. He's not like sneaking around and, you know, he's a good guy. This is Michael T. Gilbert, who did a comic.
This is the cover I want. I love.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at a box. Right, this is my wife's favorite cover because it's fun. But this is Michael T. Gilbert. He did a comic called well, he started out doing Elric of Melniboné for PC Comics, Pacific Comics, that didn't last it. And then his main comic is Mr. Monster. Mr. Monster is like a Hellboy. He's an occult investigator, but tongue in cheek. So I can't believe I got a Michael T. Gilbert cover out of him. So he won. This is an homage to a Kurt Swan superhero comic cover. I love that. I love that.
I don't know much about your comic, but I'm sold just based on the fact that he fights a giant spider ant monster.
Yeah.
I'm totally sold.
Well, you saw that. There's been a gigantic robotic insect on all 3 covers so far.
Is something I've said before. Is like sometimes we want comics to delve into deep psychological ideas, what it means to be a superhero, what it means to be a regular person, all that. And then sometimes you just want to watch Superman punch a giant robot, right?
Well, this is the best of both worlds because I'm a big fan of like the British writers of like Warren Ellis and Mark Miller and Alan Moore. So yeah, it's not just going to be like the Super Friends, which I loved as a kid, but I'm not a kid anymore. So there's going to be explorations into like psychology, but it's not going to be like subversive or any of that stuff. You know, the bad guys are bad, the good guys are good. You might understand their motivations, but they're bad people. You know, the main bad guy he's just a creep. Yeah, if you read between the lines, you're going to be like, it's a good thing he got defeated because it would have been bad. This is some of the interior artwork. This is the first couple of pages. Yeah, even on these first 2 pages, there's Easter eggs for stuff that you'll see later on in the future. You know,
blimps.
Yeah, it's funny because the letterer asked me, what year is this comic set in? I'm like, modern day, because he's like, well, there's dirigibles and the guy's dressed like a 30s gangster. He goes, you think people might be confused? So when you get the comic, it says, it's actual Father's Day 2024. What is that, June 16th?
Yes.
But this guy, he went crazy and he dresses up like a 30s gangster. He gets beautiful showgirls. You know, he's inspired by Al Capone. You know, he just walks into banks in broad daylight with sexy girl. Everybody's gonna, because for him it's about the thrill.
It's about the show.
Yeah. So he's Boss Moxie, you know, and he's, you know,
it's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
But
it's about the Mets.
Scroll back up to that other image where the patriarch shows up for the first time.
This one up here where he's in the shadow.
Right up here. Yeah. Oh, nope. Down. That's page 1. This is page 2. So if you look at that image, you see that there's a statue behind him outside the bank.
Yeah.
I really wanted that statue to be in there because that is going to play an important part in the comic coming on, because I already talked about this. He's the superhero of Science City. Science City is near Yuma, Arizona. When I was driving through Yuma, Arizona, I just noticed how much empty space out there. And I was like, what if they just built solar panels out here and blah, blah, blah. So I got this idea of this developer builds Science City in Yuma, Arizona. Every building has solar panels. Everything's coming. So they got moving sidewalks and stuff like that. And then they got like dirigibles instead of buses, and, you know, just to make it like eco-friendly. But the thing is, the guy who designed it, Ian Strange, he's a magician. So he's all the lines, all the side, it's all magic glyphs and symbols, and he's harnessing the power of ley lines. And it was all supposed to be focused in this spire in the center of the city. But the developer, the egomaniac, Philip Manning, he replaced the spire with this statue of himself because he's like a antiquarian, is that the word? And so now all the magic that was supposed to be harnessed into this spire and radiate warmth to everybody radiates bizarre frequencies. So now people are waking up and dressing up like 30s gangsters and robbing the bank, you know, because I was always like, why does Gotham City have freaks in it? Why does a guy wake up and dress like a penguin or a clown or an alligator and rob banks, but not
Yeah.
Baltimore, not Seattle, not Pittsburgh. So there's something about Gotham. So I was like, there's something about Science City. So that's an underlying story, is that there's a magic spell being horribly miscast.
I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I like it too. If I could pat myself on the back, just look at this artwork. Just look at this artwork.
Gorgeous artwork,
And
and
the
it says
coloring-
so much about Patriarch's character here. I mean, he doesn't even throw a punch in this
Right,
page,
well,
and he beats the bad guy.
Well, look at it this way. You're in your room jumping around like a maniac when you were 7 years old. Does your dad just kick open the door and beat the crap out of you? Or does your dad say, hey, knock it off? That's not good behavior. It's time to go to bed. I got to work in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's what the Patriarch does. If you notice, he always addresses the villains by their name. He tries to talk them down to the point that might be a weakness in a problem when if he's dealing with a real psychopath guy, who's like, how Superman always comes in. Superman could defeat anybody if he just came in and heat visions and slaughtered everybody. But he always
goes in with the Homelander approach.
So he's a father. He's got 7 kids. He's not going to come in and beat up. Plus, he knows Boss Moxie's crazy.
He wants to help him. So patriarchy, but
The
he's also not going to be the guy.
Homelander. He's the anti-Homelander.
Yeah, I love that.
No,
It's no
he's a
secret.
good guy.
I hate The Boys. I
Me
hate
too.
everything about it. I don't even like superheroes who like have bloodshed anything like that. No, save that for like the dark gothic fantasy heroes, not superheroes.
Don't get me wrong. I like the Watchmen. I didn't like Dark Knight Returns. I didn't like the way they treated Superman, but I like, when you make up your own characters, be as dark as you want. I'm a big fan of Garth Ennis, who wrote the Boys comic, but the Boys comic it made my stomach hurt. I didn't like it. Like, if you read the comic, I don't know about the movie, but there's even Wee Huey does horrible things. There's no good guy in that comic, nobody to root for. And I started to get like, but I bought it because I'm an obsessive comic book collector. And then I stopped reading around like issue 20, but I got all 35 issues. And then one day I was like, I got to read them. And I read them all. I was like, I don't feel good. So I definitely don't want to watch the show. I liked Invincible because the character Invincible, the character's name, I can't even remember now, Secret. He's a good guy. He wants to do the right thing. You could root for him. When given horrible choices, he does the best that he can. I like that. There's a guy to root for. So, plus it's his own creation. Robert Kirkman can do whatever he wants with his own characters.
Mm-hmm. It's just like you want your heroes to be good guys just because they are good guys. It's not for any secret motive or just for the cameras. I love this.
Mark Grayson. Yeah, Prater's telling me Mark Grayson. See, the comic started, he was already out all night doing superhero stuff. Now it's Father's Day and he wants to go home and have breakfast with his family. So the name of the story is called Father's Day. And when you're a superhero and you're a good guy, he's getting distracted by car accidents, by supervillain attacks. So now the day's going, he's missing Father's Day and he just wants to go home, spend time with his family. He's not one of these TV tropes that just rolls his eyes, doesn't want to spend any time with his kid. Matter of fact, issue 5, if I make it that far, is all about him with his kids and his family.
So will your comic kind of like explore the idea, like the fact that the call for the hero never stops? Or
Yes. I read an article years ago about Superman. Like Superman, he has super hearing, he has super sight. So Superman could hear everything in the world. Like, he's almost a god, to the point where like Superman sitting at home having dinner with Lois is almost selfish. It's like somewhere somebody's dying, somewhere in the world, something that, to him to go watch a movie with Lois Lane, it's like, dude, come on, man. So I wanted to explore that. So he has heightened senses. If you scroll up to that scene where you saw half of his face, like
this one, where it's
this one
right here,
like right here. What he's doing is he's flying home, and he says, before I go home, let me use my senses. And it's funny because my friend said, oh, his name is the Patriarch and he has the male gaze. And I was like, I didn't even think of that. But yes. So what he does is he releases his senses. So when I say he releases this, it's like more than clairvoyance. Like all 5 of his senses leave his body, and at the speed of thought, he's checking things out. But the thing is, his body is vulnerable. He could be set on fire, he could be shot, but he can't feel it because his sense of touch is elsewhere. You know what I mean? So he only does it when he's in the sky, he knows nothing's around or whatever. So he's looking, can I check this out? But it takes a lot of effort and it makes him vulnerable. So I wanted to give him an out that he could spend time with his family because he can't constantly use this sense. You know what I mean? It would leave him weak and depleted.
It's interesting. I kind of like this one panel here where he is writing out his senses. The second panel here, we see the image of the kid with the cat stuck in the tree. The class.
Yeah, he's deciding what is the most important thing right now. Cat in the tree. Okay. Oh, kid lost his car accident.
Yeah, like car accident. That's obviously the most important.
Any of those were important enough for him to save, but the car accident. Can we argue that takes precedent?
Yeah, that absolutely takes precedent. And that's the right choice to make because the cat can get down eventually, and the kid will get his balls so long as he's not running out into traffic. He's fine.
And then, so that's him. So that was how I wanted. Like this issue was mostly showing his powers, and then this was explaining that he's not Superman. Like if you notice. I'm pointing like you can see my finger. If you notice, he's carrying the car and he's concentrating. So he has his main power is telekinesis.
All right, so he's a telepath.
Yeah, he's not a telepath. He can't read minds. He's telekinetic. So he's like Marvel Girl, Jean Grey from the X-Men back in the early days. He can't read minds, so he could release his senses, and he's telekinetic. So he's and he even says if you read the comic with the word balloons, he's like, this is stressful for me because he's trying to do it even. Like he's practicing his powers right now. And this is a dad. And he's like, it's Father's Day. Let me help him out. So he doesn't need to, this is my Father's Day gift to you. I'm going to fix your car so you don't have to go through your insurance and stuff like that.
Truly, he is a good man.
He's a good guy. That's what I was trying to set up in this issue, that he is a good guy. It's why I didn't do his origin in the first issue. Do you care about a new superhero's origin right away?
No.
His origin will be in issue 3.
I like that. It's because we want to know about the hero first. And unless the origin is so important to who they are, like say, oh, I was a criminal, but now I'm on the path of good. We kind of need to know that. Otherwise, we don't need to know why a superhero does good. He does good because he's a superhero.
Right.
That's the trope that we are able to follow that logic.
Yeah, I mean, I really, it's good. I mean, I know everybody thinks their comic's good, so yeah, it's good. Zach Dempsey's got an email. Hopefully, he'll get it sometime this week. I'm in Texas. Yeah, you'll get it. If you ordered my comic, if you ordered a digital comic, you should have got it weeks ago. If you didn't get it and you ordered it, let me know your backer number. I'll send you a file. If you ordered it physically, they're all out. They're all out. The last orders went out yesterday. So, wait 2 weeks. If you didn't get it, I'll check the tracking and we'll figure out what's going on. You could get a coin. I love coins. So I made pint glasses. I was just like, what? He's a dad. What kind of swag would a dad want? A pint glass.
We'll be in the superhuman man cave. All right.
Right. So I made a pint glass, and you can't really see it in that ad, but could you see it here? It's got the patriarch symbol on it.
Yeah, let me make you the big guy.
You know what I mean? So I see a big crow. Now I see a little me.
There we go.
But there you go. You could see it's got the patriarch, the laurel wreath, the
there. Yeah, perfect.
and then in 2, maybe 3 weeks, I want to make a stream where everybody who got pint glasses send out an open invite. We all have a beer together. I'm gonna wear my patriarch shirt. I got. I love the shirt. It looks like a cape on the back.
Gotta love a man who's willing to cosplay his own character.
I'm gonna wear the patriarch shirt. I'm gonna have a beer. We're gonna have a patriarch have a beer night. I would, maybe in 3 more weeks, I'll do a read through of my comic, and you can ask questions, about, comics. Yuck, David Aragon says. I know.
David Aragon, then you have no right to say. You've been working on yours for like 5 years.
So these are collector card for every $1,000. Like the first stretch goal was a backup story. Ron Mosicki and myself, we did Unheroic Tales. That was the origin story of a villain who will debut in issue. Well, he debuted in issue 1, but it's his origin. But you'll see him, in issue 2 more prominently. In spoiler alert, he becomes the mayor of Science City because all politicians are evil. Let's be realistic. So you'll see his origin story, and so at $3,000, the first stretch goal was met, and then every 1,000 after that, I released a card. Unfortunately, I didn't get to the last 2 cards. But they're made, so now I'm gonna make like a pack of all 7 cards. Make that I'll make that something possible. Oh yeah, and I also made this a Heroic Tales challenge coin, like a big coin, and I didn't put these on the campaign page because they arrived too late. So so for issue 2, I'm going to do this. Make these coins. I made stickers. I'll be getting new stickers at the end of the week. If anybody ordered my comic and your package doesn't have the 2 stickers, let me know and I'll mail you them in an envelope. I didn't want you to wait a week either. So I'll just put 2 stickers in an envelope. Big deal.
I like the merch.
Yeah, everybody likes the merch. I'm trying the t-shirts. If you want t-shirts, I just put in another. I sold out my original order. I put in another order that should be showing up any day. Reach out to me. I'll tell you the prices and everything because then they're not on the campaign page. But people like them. I can't believe I kept one for myself and all the rest of them went.
Yeah. The t-shirt's probably definitely the thing I would get.
It's so cool.
I would love to have more merch, but I wouldn't be able to take care of it, and I don't know where I would put it.
Well, you order a little. I mean, you order a little bit at a time. Like I got boxes of pint glasses in my garage, but fortunately, I moved out of that 1-bedroom apartment. Can you imagine if I was still in that 1-bedroom apartment doing this? Oh my God, my wife would.
It'd become a choice between the wife and the comics, and we all know which one you would choose.
Yeah, the comic.
The comics.
No, my wife. I joke. My wife has been super supportive the whole time because she knows this is something that's important to me.
Is she a
and
comic
it's funny
lover
because
too?
her friends bust their chops. Oh, your husband's making a comic book. She's like, "What's your husband doing? Watching TV?" The bills are paid. I'm a handy guy. I'm a construction worker, so like the house is repaired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was up on the roof. You got to hear the horror stories that my health went through while making this comic. I had hernia surgery. I broke my neck in a car accident. I had COVID. Everything, and I still got the comic book done.
And like I said in the back room before we started, it's not art if it doesn't kill you a little.
Yeah. I'm just going through your chat. See, people ask questions. Torchbearer Studios says John's one of the best show hosts in the hobby. Thank you.
I am impressed. This is an interesting book. I love it, and I love your story of comics. You very clearly have a passion in this that a lot of people I see making comics, especially when I got started in this whole indie comic thing, they just didn't seem to have, or they got distracted with the YouTube side of this and the business side of things. Now,
yes, I'm a YouTuber who makes a comic. I got to be real because I've been doing YouTube, but I think just under 2,000 subs. It's not like it's YouTube was just a way for me to talk to other people about comic books. I didn't know anybody in my new town. And I make comics. I just like to make comics. Sheepless Dreamer asked me, how many projects have you worked on? Just one. This is my first project, and now I got issue 2 in the works. And then I got a second comic in the works. You know what? I'm going to find a file and I'm going to show you a spoiler.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So we'll talk while I'm finding the spoiler.
Right.
But I got a second comic. Remember, I was talking about like all ages. Like I said, I'm not a prude. I understand that there's different types of comics. So here is after issue number 2 in January. I want to launch Eddie is Doomed, and Eddie is Doomed is going to be Love and Rockets meets Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's going to be a little bit more adult in that it's going to have like some dirty words. It might even have a little nudity, but
He's
it's
going to say
encapsulated.
wiener.
And then at the same time, Eddie, because Eddie's a 35-year-old grocery store manager who he runs a grocery store. It's the first job he ever had. He just lives everything as easy as possible. And now his dad's saying, you know what, Eddie, I want to retire and move to Florida. You have to get your own place to live. And Eddie's like, how could you do this to me? He's so selfish. He's not a bad guy. He's just lazy and selfish. So then he goes to the comic book store and he complains to his buddy. He's like, yeah, my dad's he's moving to Florida. And his buddy's like, oh man, you had that sweet setup in the basement. He's like, and then he sees this comic called The Doomed Earth and he picks it up. And his comic book company is ending its continuity. It's the Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's the end of the Silver Age. And he's like, all of his worlds are ending. What are you doing?
Not my favorite comic book run. No.
Yeah. So it's like, you ruined my childhood and now his adulthood is end. You know what I mean? So these are all the characters in. So if you notice, there's two art styles. So Oscar Carano is doing all the superhero stuff. And Tonic Mole, who has a wonderful comic called Saving the World, he's doing all the real life stuff. So I was thinking of having the real world stuff in black and white, like Love and Rockets, and then having all the superhero stuff like vibrantly four-colored, just to contrast the two worlds. And there's going to be two stories that I'm hoping intertwine, but this is going to be a one-shot. Eddie is doomed.
It's a coming of age tale.
Yeah, for a 35-year-old guy.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I love that cover. I cannot stop looking at that cover. I made up 10 superheroes, and the comic company is called Top Comics, so they are called the Top 10. And then if this does well, after Eddie is doomed, I want to do the secret origin of the Top 10, and then do Golden Age, and then the secret origin of the Top 10, Silver Age, and then Top 10 secret origin, like modern 90s style. I think that might be fun. Neff Champion says, I just might grab this. Well, I'm hoping maybe around June, because I don't want to be one of these guys that has multiple campaigns open and unfulfilled.
That's been bugging me recently,
right? And I've had people that told me, like, I didn't back your book because it's your first campaign. I don't know, am I throwing money into a woodshedder? You know what I mean? And I understand that. It's funny. So since I said I'm shipping comics, I've had a bunch of sales. Yeah, and I totally understand that. I can't get mad at people. It's actually smart. So yeah, my comics right here. I got boxes of them right next to me.
It's a strange thing, the crowdfunding scene, because some people
right here, guys.
Some people see it as as a funding project. We're trying to help make this guy dream come true of making his comics. Other people see it as a customer. I'm one of those people. I see it as like, I am buying a service from you, and if you don't perform or deliver, I'm not getting your stuff anymore.
Right. And that's the way it should be. To be honest, like, listen, everybody's as good as their last project in this field. You know what I mean? Like, maybe let's pretend 10 years ago I put out the greatest comic book in the world, and then I fumbled the last 3 in a row. Are you going to get my fourth? So I really do think, Heroic Tales 1 is a good comic. It's a good American style Bronze Age superhero comic book with legs. I like the characters. Issue number 2 is going to have and here's another thing. Every issue is self-contained, because I don't think it's right to ask you guys to wait 9 months, 10 months for the next part. And then you're paying $60 for a story, So my comic was $10. It's 2 full stories. If you never get another comic book, at least you got a satisfying conclusion. So that's, and issue 2 is going to be 2 complete stories. If I hit a stretch goal, there'll be a 3rd complete story.
Charles Cholkin, Kishu the Badger, that girl in the American costume was that. He's talking about one of your characters, or is he talking about Red Squirrel here in the background?
That's her name, Red Squirrel?
The All-American Red Squirrel, yeah.
That's a good name, actually. I'm trying to think what girl. Oh, well,
Probably.
there was a girl with a thunder. Yeah, she was stacked. She's Thunder Woman. Yeah, she's my Wonder Woman ripoff. But I got to be honest with you, they're all stacked.
Yeah.
It's
They're
comic.
stacked like comics.
Yeah. Matter of fact, one of the main superhero girls is Bikini Girl. And can anybody guess what Bikini Girl's powers are?
Geez, I don't know. Heat vision. No,
No.
that's what I
They
got.
tested the first atomic bombs in the Knoll Bikini Atoll.
Oh,
So she was a reporter who was out, by the Bikini Atoll, like basically interviewing the people, and she got too close to the bomb, got irradiated, and became Bikini Girl. So she has atomic powers, and her skin is too hot, so she has to wear this bikini because it's golden age,
yeah.
So,
All right, so
but they're supposed to be hokey. They're supposed to be hokey. Red Squirrel is actually a pretty good name.
yeah. We're here to talk about your comic though, but unless you want to hear about some of the things I've been up.
Is she kind of like the Hulk? No. She's beautiful. She has controlled nuclear explosions.
Is it like Firestar? If I'm remembering the name right.
Yep. And there's a fire character, Femfire. She's like a later addition to the top 10, and she's like a 70s version of like a feminist superhero. Like if you remember the early iterations of Carol Danvers, how she was always like inserted. People like look at her like, what are you talking about? We're trying to fight Dr. Doom over here, But it's all tongue in cheek, and it's supposed to be like 70s DC comics, and then the crisis happens. Doomkeeper and shows up.
Doomkeeper, is that the big Skeletor guy in the background?
Yeah, Doomkeeper is the monitor character that destroys the
Monitor. I love it. Doomkeeper is a great villain's name.
Cool, thank you. And Doomkeeper's this big brother who is my Watchman character. He's this big eyeball character, and he wants everything. I don't know. I think these names. Somebody was saying that there's it's hard to come up with, because I'm real critical of superhero names. And one of the guys, we weren't arguing, we were fun arguing. He's like, it's hard, yeah, but it's hard. All the good names have been taken, and I'm like, that just means you got to work harder. There's a lot of still good superhero. I said I just came up with a comic book, and there's probably 24 cool superhero names. Because those supervillains got to fight. Those superheroes got to fight supervillains.
Yeah, I'm coming up with superhero names. It's like one of my favorite parts of the job. I got an all-American red squirrel, the Grand British gray squirrel, which I have gotten a lot of flack for because gray squirrels are not British.
Oh, okay.
I had that backwards, but I'm not changing it because I think it's funny now.
Yep.
And then we like villains. We got Senorita is the one everybody's been most proud of from me.
Oh wow! So was she like Hispanic and flame powers?
Yep.
That is awesome. That's a good name. That's pretty clever.
And that finally becomes the main naming convention. Is like, how can I add words together to make something new that'd be interesting to sound?
Yeah, it is tough, but when you come up with a good one, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, especially if the name should portray something about the character. Like with your guy, what was his name? Doomkeeper? Doom. Yeah. Obviously, he's the big bad guy. His name is Doom, so evil immediately.
Yeah, there's no redemption there, and he's got a skull face. That's one of my theory of superheroes is there's 3 components. It has to have a good name, and if you don't have a good name, your comic is not focused. A superhero name is the focus of your superhero. Like when I say Batman, you already know a good 50% about the character, just from everything falls from that name, which is why I don't like Deadpool. I don't like I know I catch hell for saying this, but I don't like Cable. What the hell does that name mean? It's not like the name should describe the hero, and it just does. Like the Patriarch. When I tell you the Patriarch, everything else falls from that name. I think it's a good name, and it describes the character really well. But, that's what I think. And then from there, you got to have a costume, and a superhero costume has to be simple and elegant, like not too many colors, and then the powers have to follow up the name. You're not in Senorita, which is a really clever name. She's not going to have reality warping powers. She's got to have some sort of fire, abilities.
Yeah, it's like the costume, like the idea with design the costume is that it should be a flag. If it can make a decent looking flag, it can make a decent looking costume.
And that's part of the costume is a symbol, and you'll see later on, because there's magic, that a symbol, the superhero symbol, becomes like a magical glyph. So it's super important. So I'm trying to come up with a good symbol for each character. Like the Superman symbol is easily recognizable.
Yeah. I mean, like you got the Green Lantern right behind you. That's the symbol right there.
That is a great symbol. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've ran out of questions. Your comic is fascinating. I'm interested. Actually, I do have to ask one question. What is with the giant spider ant?
Okay. You're on Follow My Comic. Scroll down. There should be one more cover that you didn't see.
What cover?
Okay, right there.
Right here.
This cover. There's this is Mike Gustovich. Mike Gustovich did he did the Justice Machine in the 80s, and he did Justice League. So he did a cover. See, he actually liked the bad guy so much he wanted to draw him. I was kind of keeping the bad guy quiet, but so this is the final cover, and there's the bad guy. He's Dr. Robug. Oh, you lost it.
I got a larger version of the picture. I'll show that up.
Dr. Robug is Roland Robards, and he I don't want to tell his story, but he's a mad genius. He's a gadgeteer, and he makes these insect robots, and it's kind of like he's a Dr. Octopus, and I didn't realize it when I was writing it, but then I was like, oh wow. So here, this guy, Patriarch, is a dad. He's good looking, he flirts a little bit, but he's not going to cheat on his wife. He's charming. He's people like him. He's charismatic. He has 7 kids, so he's been with women, and then he's fighting the classic incel. This guy, he's short, he's ugly, he's creepy. It's so I didn't plan that out, but it's funny how the subconscious works. So there you go, Dr.
I had just taken a drink of water when he said he's fighting the incel. I love it. That's the best part about superheroes. It's got to be a little goofy. It just has to be.
I'm going to issue 3. I'm going to introduce a Batman character, and I want to introduce why I like. It would be creepy to have a Batman or a Punisher in your town. So I'm trying to find this art, if I can actually find this piece of art, but to show it to you. But it's like, yeah, all right, you got to take it seriously, but if you take it too seriously, it would be scary. Like, do you think it would be scary to have the Punisher in your town shooting people up? You know what I mean?
Yeah, terrifying.
Even though the Punisher is like an adult. What's the word? Like an adult fantasy.
Yeah,
it's still kind of creepy. Where is this?
Yeah, but in the real world, the Punisher would be he's a terrorist.
Yeah,
he's a horrific serial killer. Yeah, he's going after criminals. But he's a monster.
So I made this because I'm going to introduce, and I'm not going to tell you the guy's name yet, because every time I introduce the character's name, somebody else is coming out with a comic book that swipes my name. But this is going to be a promo poster that I'm going to put in issue number 2. So here's my Batman character. You see he's got a gun in his hand. He's hiding. The city is disgusting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's watching all the filth. So he's going to be inspired by did you ever see Taxi Driver?
No, I have not seen Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver, as he's driving, it's raining, and it says someday a real rain will come and wash all the scum off the streets. So that's what it's going to say on the top, and then on the bottom it's going to say, I am that rain. And he's super violent to the point where it's going to be like, God, and then issue number 4, the patriarch and this character are going to meet for the first time. So it's going to be like Batman and Superman meet, you know, and there's going to be a fight. They're going to fight, and it's going to be real stakes involved in this fight. Why are they fighting? You know what I mean? It's going to be scary, because I like Batman, but I like the street level detective Batman. You know, I like the Punisher, but like Punisher would be a little scary to have in you know what I mean? Because as far as you know, he's just killing these Italian guys. You know what I mean? Like most mafia guys don't walk around saying, "Hey, we're criminals," you know. And so,
Hey, I'm the
you know what I mean?
mom.
So you're just like, "What's going on here?" So just call your Batman character Grimdark. It basically has been used. Yeah, that's a good name. But
I hate to inform you, but I'm.
If you can see his chest symbol, it's rain. So you know it has something to do with rain. You know.
Yeah.
But there you go. So this is going to be like in the center. It's a 2-page spread for it. It'll be in issue number 2. It adds an advertisement for issue number 3.
I like it. It's good art. Who did the art for this one?
This is Renzo Rodriguez, and the colors are Daniel De La Silva Rodriguez. You know, so you know, it was funny because I told him have a couple of the lights out. He goes, "How do I color that?" I go, "You don't color it." So. Yeah, it's just fun. It's just fun. So yes, you know, I embrace the hokiness of superheroes, but I think if you read Marvel comics, you can have one issue where Spider-Man fights some silly villain, and then you pick up Punisher War Journal or Wolverine, and it's a little bit more realistic. But nobody says, "Oh, that's not the Marvel universe." So that's what I'm trying to do. Is like there's going to be different. You know, each superhero, I'm hoping, has like a different flavor, scratches a different comic book itch. Like, I'm going to show you more artwork. Oh, that's not what I want to show you. But, you know, for issue 2, like I said, I'm already halfway done. Forgive me if I'm talking too much, but you get me talking about my comic book, I'll talk forever.
No, it's totally fine. I wanted to hear about your comic book.
Okay.
I love hearing about what people have to say about their creations. You never want to have a person who's like, "Oh yeah, I'm making this thing and go buy it."
If I'm not excited to tell you about it, then why would you be excited to look for? So this is cover for issue number 2. So this is going to be like more of my cosmic science, you know, patriarchist classic superheroes. This is Mary Sue. I'm playing with the concept of a Mary Sue. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
Yes. So a Mary Sue is perfect. You know, like it's a derogatory term. Like, oh man, that character's a Mary Sue. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm being controversial, but everybody says Rey from Star Wars is the perfect example of a Mary Sue. She could fly the Millennium Falcon. She's so good, Han Solo just gives it to her. And that poor Chewbacca is like, what about me, man? I've been flying this thing for 20 years. You just give it to this girl, you know. She's a better Jedi fighter. She's better this. She's better that. Everybody else just exists to tell Rey she's good. And she doesn't really have an arc because she was perfect. So this is Mary Sue. Her name is Mary Sue. Sue is a Chinese name. And she's perfect. But she's perfect in her grandmother's eyes. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? When your Chinese grandmother says you're perfect, you're a good girl. She get perfect grades. So she's like 22 years old. She's got her doctorate. She goes off. She works for that guy holding the mineral right there. That's Philip Manning. He's the guy that built Science City. You know, he wants superpowers. You know, why doesn't Lex Luthor find out how to give himself superpowers? That always didn't sit right with me. So he hires Mary Sue. She's the best scientist to find out how to get superpowers. Well, things go wrong, and she gets the superpowers that Philip Manning was supposed to get. And now her powers are she's perfect. She's perfect in every way, but she doesn't know that she's perfect yet. And it's like the butterfly effect. If she changes reality to make it perfect for her, she's, you know,
gotta be imperfect for
you
someone
can't
else.
see all the ripples. So she's going to use her powers in the first issue. And it makes things better short term, but long term, it causes a lot of problems that she's going to be working with. And she has like ultimate powers that she doesn't want to use.
Yeah.
So, and where's the patriarch? In issue number 2, there's going to be an 18-page Patriarch story, and then when you flip the comic over, it's going to have a Mary Sue story. And going forward, there's going to be 2 superheroes in every comic. It's going to be a flip book. I got that idea from Tim Seeley's Local Man. What do I mean by a flip book? So, you got this comic right here, and then so say this is the comic, and then when you flip it over, there's another cover. So, if you just go like this, half the book is going to be upside down. But so whatever cover you decide is the main cover is the main cover, because I have a whole bunch of superheroes. They're all going to interact. Or, I'm forming the Avengers around issue 10. The Thanos level threat is going to attack, and they form the event. But if I do that at issue 1, nobody cares. It doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If Marvel did Infinity War, the first movie, it wouldn't have had the impact. So, I'm trying to copy that. So
yeah, just remember how DC did it with their movies. It's like we had Superman fought Batman.
Right.
We had Wonder Woman, Justice League.
Yeah, DC did it a little too fast, if you ask me. Marvel paced it out properly. Like, you cared about Captain America, you cared about the Black Panther, you cared about Thor. You cared about them all. Whereas, DC they just screwed the pooch, if you ask me.
Yeah, they were trying to rush it.
Heroin Bird, that Mary Sue idea is gorgeous. Similar to he has a character called Ex Machina that I really, really like. Sometimes you see another character and you just get like jealous. You're like, oh man, I wish I came up. But Ex Machina has like these machine powers. She controlled. She has like telemechanical powers. Really cool.
That's interesting. I'll have to go check that one out here in a little bit.
Jake, whatever, says power she doesn't want, but she's now stuck with them like a venereal disease. Yes, she uses her power, and I'm hoping that it's kind of subtle in her debut. Her second appearance, it's going to be totally understood what happened. So, and there might be, her first, she's appearing in number 2. Issue number 3 is going to have my Batman character. Issue number 4 is going to have a time traveling character as the backup. I'm not going to tell you his name or anything yet, but it's because somebody will steal it. But the name of that story is called "Let's Save the Dinosaurs." So it's going to be a more whimsical, like a Jack Kirby type of story. And then issue 4, I might go back to I'm losing track of the number. Issue 5, I might go part 2 to the Mary Sue story. But if it's successful enough, I might just spin out the comics and just make a Patriarch comic, make a Mary Sue comic,
yeah,
and then Heroic Tale,
Heroic Tale, they have their own stories.
That's up to you guys if you like it or not.
Got to have as many projects as possible.
Yeah, well, like I said, I got two projects in mind. After Eddie is doomed, if that does well, like I said, I have like 2, maybe 3 follow-ups, and then I have a full-on horror comic that I want to do. I thought it was so clever until I found out that a lot of people do, but it's cowboys versus vampires, old West vampires.
Gotta love it.
And all of these comics are in the same universe. I'm big into continuity. Even Eddie lives in the same universe as the Patriarch. Matter of fact, Eddie works for a supermarket. The supermarket he works for is Sue Mart, which is what Mary Sue's parents run. So the comic book that Eddie reads is also the comics that the Patriarch's kids read. So
we're going to find out Eddie is actually the Patriarch in the Patriarch's him when he gets over his character arc. No,
Eddie is doomed is set in 1986, so he's like, he's slightly older than Mary Sue's parents. So if we were to see Eddie in the modern times, he would be big and fat and balding and everything. But that might happen. I'm a continuity nut. I love everything tied together. I'm already, like I said, on that first page, there's Easter eggs that I hope people pick up. I love that kind of stuff. And again, it's all complete. Like, if you just buy issue number 1 and you never buy another one of my comics, you're gonna get a complete, satisfying story. You can't complain about the art. You can't complain about the coloring. If I think the story's fun. I'm trying to be humble, but in this independent scene, I understand too many people got burnt too many times. So the comic's done. If you buy it now, I'll put put your comic in the mail tomorrow, and you'll get it when? A week? How long does the mail take? I don't know.
It takes about a week. I work the post office. It takes about
you work
a
the
week.
post office? Cool. The post office. I went to the post office with a big box of Gemini mailers.
Mhm.
And the guy was like, you could schedule a pickup at your house. I did
Yeah.
not know that, because I was like, because I told people it's going to be weird because only on Saturdays can I ship out the comics because I don't get home from work until 5:30. But now I just put all the boxes in the garage and then schedule. My wife works from home. She opens the garage door. The post office takes. So you know what I mean? I didn't know that.
I actually learned that the post office does the box things from a Simpsons skit. There's this skit where Bart and Lisa see Ned Flanders getting a whole bunch of boxes for his business, and he gives them the number, and they fake owning a business to get all of these free boxes, and they end up making a gigantic box fort and having to fight off all the post office workers.
Well, that's what I'm going to be doing. You can't, but I got all post office boxes laying up there because But so I asked for post office boxes. They ship them right to my house. I do a series of videos called Crowdfunding 101, and I just talk about my progress. So we got to do one more because I got to do fulfillment. So there's this guy Eddie that not Eddie is doomed, but another guy that Eddie Libert that we've been talking about because he wants to do crowdfunding. So I'm going to message him. Let's do it fulfilling. And again, everybody's fighting in the indie scene. I don't need to talk about that, but I try to focus on the positive. I fail. I'm failable. I allowed myself to be drawn into the swamp a few times. I'm not proud of it, but I did. And but I got to say, the niceness has been much better than the nastiness. Like I reached out to people like Brian Bauer. I mentioned his comic. He's been instrumental. Nick Axe, he's drawn Crom the Destroyer. He's been so freaking helpful. Fabrizio's been helpful. Matt Bauer, who's been helpful. He did the art on Rock and Roll Ninja. Even Mandy Summers, who's like a bigwig in Comicsgate, she told me some advice about shipping. I didn't know anything about pirate ship and stuff like that. So that saved me a lot of money on shipping. Everybody's been so freaking helpful.
Yeah.
And that's what I choose to focus on.
The vast majority of the people have been very nice to me whenever I've gotten a chance to interact with them. Like I said, I'm a small fish in a big pond, even in the indie standards.
Me too. What I sold in comics, my first campaign, I did about $8,000. That's nice. That's good for me. There's other guys. Eric July's doing what, $2 million a comic?
$1 million a comic.
You know what I
I
mean?
can't even begin to phantom that much money. It's just
Right. But you know what? It ain't stopping me. It's not a zero-sum loss because Eric July is making $2 billion a comic doesn't mean that people aren't buying my comic. If you want my comic, you buy. And people want lots of comics. People love comic books. So just because you're more successful doesn't mean I'm less successful. I don't believe that. I think because Eric July is so successful that a couple of his fans are like, what else is out there? So I'm getting some of his, strays that are looking elsewhere, sideways. Oh, what other comics? Eric July's on this guy John Longbox channel. Oh, he has a comic. You know what I mean? So a rising tide floats all boats. I don't know why people are fighting and yelling,
I don't know. It's jealousy, the egos get together.
Right.
When you have massive amounts of people like this together, it's bound people are just not going
Yes.
to like each other out of reason. I don't know. It's all dark. There's one more thing I wanted to ask real quick before we start wrapping this up. Does the patriarchy have a secret identity, or is he public?
Yeah, the patriarchy has in issue 3, you're going to find out that he got his powers in public. So he doesn't wear a mask. People know who he is. He's James Kelly. He was an EMT, and he got his powers in public. So he doesn't have a secret identity. He takes the name of the patriarch, and you know what I mean? And that causes problems. If you looked at that back cover, they're on a farm. His family lives out in the middle of nowhere because the Joker, Dr. Octopus, the Lizard, the Red Skull. These people are crazy supervillains. They go to crazy. So he painstakingly keeps his family. He homeschools his kids. You know, he's a farmer. You know, he hunts. You see him hunt in that issue. You know what I mean? He does everything off the grid because he can't let villains know where he lives. So that's a big part of like his life, and that's also going to be a big part of drama if I make it far enough, because his son is 19. His oldest son's 19 years old. He doesn't want to live on a farm for the rest. He wants to go meet chicks. He wants to go out. He wants to go to college. He wants to, you know what I mean? So his father is like, I can't let him. He's safe now. I could protect him, but you know what I mean? He goes out in the world, and then what? One of his villains takes revenge. You know what I mean? It's. I think that's you know, they always, if you notice, all superheroes are always orphans. They never have brothers and sisters. And I'm one of 7 kids myself. So I'm like, you know, we every time we get together, we're telling funny stories about me fighting with my brother, and my brother fighting with my sister fighting with my sister, fighting with my cousins. You know what I mean? They're funny stories. It's funny stories. You know what I mean? So family is a great source of drama and tension and happiness. And, you know, I don't understand why comic book characters always leave out the family. So I purposely making it a big family. I'm trying to work in her family, his wife. You know, he can't do what he does without his wife, because she holds down the farm, because he's always off doing superhero stuff. And one of my friends read the comic, and he said, you didn't show his wife too much, Marissa Kelly. You didn't show her too, but what you showed of her, it showed you how solid their relationship is. And that was my goal. He's not a bad guy. He loves his wife. He, in a perfect world, he would be home with his wife and kids every day. But with great power comes responsibility.
Yeah. And you were mentioning the part about the son being 19. That's part of being father, is to let your children go out into the world. You can't be there for them. They have to be adults on their own at some point.
Right. At what point do you become a villain? Keeping your kids, you know,
at what point do you become protective father to jailer?
Right. So. Yeah. Like the government, like we can't protect everybody from our own decisions. Like, what do we? You know what? If the government came and strapped me to this chair all day long and then came and fed me 3 times a day, I would have a perfectly safe existence. But you know what I mean? I'm not a free.
It'd be an existence, not a life.
At what point does the patriarch have to be like, listen, I gotta let my son go? You know, my father couldn't wait for us to get out of the house, but then again, he didn't have the Red Skull chasing after him every 10 seconds. You know? Maybe even if he did, he probably would have kicked me out even faster.
Love it.
Herrenberg asked a question: if James Kelly, the patriarch, got his powers in public, wouldn't hundreds try to duplicate those same conditions? Reminds me of Amanda Connor Super Zero. First off, I got to find this comic because I'm a big fan of Amanda Connor's, and I don't know this comic, so that's awesome. He got his powers in public, but people still don't know how he got his powers. You'll see, but it's kind of like I don't want to give it away, but his powers burst forth while he was in the public, but nobody knows why. And the government cleans up. There's a government agency there's always a government agency that
always
that I'm trying not to spoil it, but there's always a government agency that, like, we can't let people know that you could do this and get superpowers,
because then we're going to have 1,000 superhumans on our hands, and not all of them are going to be good.
Because it's the next arms race.
Yeah.
So you get, and now, damn you, Herrenberg, you're forcing me to spoil stuff. But there's going to be like a disinformation campaign, so like Russia doesn't develop its own superpowers. One of the things that this government agency does is creating false origins for superheroes.
I have this exact same idea in the Red Scroll comics. The idea is that the Red Scroll comics take place in the mid-90s, so shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union. And a lot of the things she's going to have to deal with is out of work Soviet chaos agents that the Soviets were just hiring to make trouble in the States. And an agency that is like, we provide heroes with housing, food, and medical supplies they need for their powers. In returns, we help hide their secret identity and allow them to, you know, live and continue doing superhero work.
Right. If you could bring up this image again, I'm going to show, because I realize it's not. Issue number 2 talks about the nature of superpowers and everything. And you see the mineral that Philip Manning, the guy in the top right, that's the origin of all superpowers in my world. You know, there's 2 ways to get superpowers, either through magic or that mineral. And, you know, and that's how. So the
power of the sun in the palm of your hand.
So it might get out in issue 2, but Philip Manning ain't gonna let anybody else know. You know, so there you go.
All right. So whenever I have a superhero guy come on, there's always one video I always want to show, just because it makes fun of the grim state of things like The Boys is, and I just want to see what you think of it. This is from Door Monsters. It's 9 years old now. I remember watching this.
I've never heard of it.
It's called Secret Identity Crisis, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're superheroes, but they've been having some identity problems lately. They've just been all dark and moody and. Speaking of, I'm at home now, so I'll talk to you later. Hey guys, shouldn't you be out fighting crime or something?
Who would we be fighting? Who are the real criminals?
The people committing crimes? Come on, brighten up, have some fun. You've been moping around a lot lately.
I remember the last time that I had fun. And then the accident.
Hey, no flashbacks. You had a semi-traumatic experience like 16 years ago. Just think about something else for even a few minutes.
Life is difficult for us, living with this weight on our shoulders.
You can fly.
Exactly. What does he have to complain about? He's adored, looked up to for inspiration. Me? Nobody understands my curse.
You spontaneously generate balloons.
So long until I hurt someone.
It amazes me that you can even find negatives with this.
So many children in need of party favors, yet I cannot help them all.
If I even try to rescue someone, I'm afraid that the sheer G-force of my flight will liquefy their organs.
Stop trying to do that. Your powers are scientifically impossible. Stop trying to make them make sense. You only look more wrong later.
For your information, I have the ability to manipulate gravitons. And it all makes perfect sense if you're intimately familiar with quantum field theory and also not too picky about it.
My hands fell into a vat of radioactive liquid helium.
What?
Think you understand my pain?
It's the burden of an anomaly like ourselves. We endure the pain so that the true heroes never have to.
You're not anomalies or mutants or gifted. You're superheroes. You know, go wear some brightly colored spandex. Give yourselves catchy, obvious names and yell puns at criminals. Just smile once in a while. People expect it from you. They would prefer it. In fact, dressing like an American flag and punching somebody wearing a ski mask is way cooler than this angsty brooding. Getting really hard to brag about you guys being my roommates.
I suppose I can design a new uniform.
Costume. That would be great. You should definitely do that.
I hate when people say uniform.
No coats or leather or normal person clothes or dirt anywhere. And don't tell me that you have some carbon fiber armor that's both lightweight and impenetrable that the military somehow doesn't know about. Just get something brightly colored and put an emblem on the front of it so that people can identify you as awesome man.
This only looks like an A. This is the symbol of my people.
Okay, well, here it's an A, so either own it or change it.
I'm a monster.
That was funny.
I just love it. I love, like, I just love the skit. It sums up modern superheroes so well.
Yeah. It's supposed to be fun.
Supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun. I mean, they're supposed to make you, run a gamut of emotions and everything. But the bottom line is, like, so many of these superhero movies, and they're embarrassed by the source material. Own it.
Own it. Be bright, be colorful, be bombastic. Yell
Right.
puns, punch villains in the face. Spontaneously make balloons.
I didn't like the 90s comics where all the superheroes had big honking guns, like Bishop or Cable. It seems like I'm always bagging on Rob Liefeld, but all of his characters, they got these incredible powers, and then they carry huge guns because they're cool, and then their names don't fit, and then they wear military uniforms instead of costumes. It's like, dude, you don't get superhero. And I know, I like Rob Liefeld, and Deadpool is the biggest. So I'm in the minority here, but that's like, I don't know. It's Superman, red and blue. He's got a little bit of yellow. You want to go for a third color, that's fine. Fantastic Four. They got blue and dark blue. Spider-Man, red and black. Just go with it. Go with it. And keep your mask on in the movies, guys. Stop. I know what Tom Holland looks like. You're not that good looking. Keep your mask on. I want to see Spider-Man, not the fetal alcohol syndrome guy that's going out with that Cro-Magnon girl Zendaya. Keep your mask on.
You bring up the superheroes with guns. I only have one superhero with a gun, and that's British Grey Squirrel. And that's because she's modeled after super spies. The ideas of like James Bond and stuff. So, and it's whole part of her character arc is like the gadgeteering and all that crazy stuff. So, pistol, yes, but then everything else she's pulling out is like stun batons and like smoke pellets and all sorts of crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, like I said, I got a character who has a gun in the third issue, the Batman guy, but even he won't use the gun a lot. Not because he doesn't want to kill, but because guns cause problems with the police.
Yes,
you know what I mean. So and I have a character, a military character. He's a mix between Nick Fury and Captain America. He uses a gun, but he's not going to pull out his gun at a jaywalker. He has a gun on his hip, but like Giant Robot comes out, he's shooting out he's an expert marksman. He's shooting a robot in the eyes and stuff like that. Yeah. I always laugh at like the Archer superhero. It's like, oh, you're using an archaic medieval weapon to fight crime. That,
but it's got charm to it. I like that.
It does have charm to it. It is cool, but like, dude, you're killing people. There's no way you're shooting people with an arrow and they're not dead. Unless you got these magic green arrows that have boxing gloves at the end.
That's still probably going to kill somebody. The arrow moves.
And
fast.
saying that, I do have an Archer female superhero that you'll see a glimpse of her in issue number 2. But she's got other powers too.
Save your weapons for the villains because villains don't care.
Yeah, Keith Urban kept the mask on. Sylvester Stallone, if you're going to play Judge Dredd, commit to the bit. Don't take the mask off. Yeah. Somebody said, Neff Champion said, I wanted to write superheroes, but I don't know how to get started. Come on my channel. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about you starting superheroes. We'll talk about it. That's actually a fun topic. Guns draw attention. Yes, they do. Again, my street level vigilante guy, he's an undercover cop. And he was working in the supervillain community. He becomes a henchman to a major villain. And, he's basically telling the police, they're going to be over here, they're going to be over there. And then these guys so now the henchman calls the meeting, the villain calls the meeting, like say the Joker calls the meeting and everybody shows up and that guy's like, sorry, I'm late. I just got arrested. Good thing you had that lawyer on retention or I would have been there. But and he's just like, I've been doing this for 3 years. Every time I get somebody arrested, they're out in 4 hours. So he puts on a mask and he just starts breaking kneecaps and shattering elbows. It's like, well, you're not going to jail, but you're never committing crimes again. Yeah. And then to make it even worse, he's undercover for so long, the phone rings and he picks up the phone and his wife is just like, I want a divorce. So he's the anti-patriarch. His family is falling apart and he's taking it out on the villains.
Poor villains.
Yeah.
I love this one. If you're good enough, you can set arrows to merely wound. Yes, set the arrows to stun. It's like a phaser.
Well, you could put like a big pad on the end. I'm joking, but I always laughed at like people like superheroes shouldn't have guns. Superheroes, if you shoot somebody with like a bow and arrow, it's worse than being shot.
Yeah, that hurts. Yeah. And it's always been a fun one. It's like, how do I make an all-American superhero and not have a gun? Because there's nothing more American than a gun, right? Second Amendment, big deal here.
Well, it has to fit. In my role-playing game, one of my players made up a character called now I can't remember, but it was he had laser powers, so he could fly, he could turn invisible, and he could shoot lasers out of his eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the first adventure, first level, he goes out and he defeats these basically muggers, and one of the muggers had a rifle, and he's taking the rifle and he's carrying it around and I'm like, what kind of superhero who flies and has lasers carries a rifle? And he's like, well, I'm conserving my energy. So I was like, you just don't get it. Like Spider-Man doesn't beat up a mugger and carry a pistol, So
pew pew man. This is pew pew man.
Like You got to get superhero, and a lot of people don't get superheroes, and that's why I like Genuine Comics. Dave Brink, he gets superheroes. You know, I love his comics. I like to think I get superheroes. Who else? There's another guy that just gets superheroes. There's a couple of us, you know. But superheroes have a style, you know, and you got to read comics to get superheroes. Like I don't want Grimdark and Deconstruct. That was all fine. I'm over it.
Yeah.
You know?
We had our moment. Now it's time to reconstruct something new, right?
And that's what I'm trying to do. So I always say that Heroic Tales is a love letter to Blue Sky Bronze Age superheroes. You know, and I'd like to think I succeeded at that.
Yeah.
So
Is there? Well, we are coming up. We're over there.
yeah, I could talk forever. So I'm
Is there anything you would want the chat to know? Just one final push. Name of your book, all that.
yeah. The name of my books is Heroic Tales. It's on Fund My Comic. Fund My Comic is a new platform. You know, there's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo, but now there's Fund My Comic. Fund My Comic is owned by a guy named Luke Stone. Luke Stone is one of us, meaning he's a comic book guy. He got tired of shadow banning and censorship and stuff. So as he lays out the rules, you know, he doesn't want like nudity. Like if you go to Fund My Comic and you scroll past the covers, he doesn't want to see nudity and curse and stuff like that on the cover. Because I don't care what's inside the comic, but just imagine a father and kid are scrolling through the website to buy comics. You know what I mean? As long as you follow those rules, that's it. You can make your comics. He charges 2%. You know,
That is insane.
I know. I don't know how he's doing it. And the day before I launched, I messed something up, and I'm getting a 404 error, and I'm like, I called him up. I have his phone number, and he fixed it. Can you call the guy at Kickstarter? Can you call the guy at Indiegogo? No, you can't.
No.
So I'm loyal to Luke. I will always be on Fund My Comic. Yeah. If I went Grimdark, I'll spend time in Warhammer 40K. It fits Warhammer 40K.
Yes.
I actually like it in 40K. If you lighten up 40K, it's not 40K.
It's not 40K.
Yeah.
40K can have moments of comedy. That's what the orcs are for, but it's dark otherwise.
Yeah. And I will say that there's some, if I make it, there's you'll see some of my influence. There's a Warhammer 40K in a space race that a space, you know, race of aliens that may or may not show up if I make it far enough. You know, totally inspired by Warhammer, but not a ripoff. You know,
I don't think GW has much they can say about ripping off. All the Warhammer properties is great. Necrons are basically Terminators. That's where they started.
Yeah, and gene splicers are basically the alien. Yeah.
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 All right. And they can follow you on X, on Twitter at John Longbox, or is it?
Oh,
no,
it's my John's Long Box Twitter account got nuked because I argued with somebody. So I'm just gonna type it in the chat because if I say it, it makes no sense. But it was one of those auto-generated, and it actually sounds pretty cool. So I left it. Oh, and of course I typed in the wrong thing because I'm like that.
And now it's going to take you to some random porn bot.
Yeah. So the second one, Zentorian 2000. That's my name on Twitter. That you know, you'll see me post. If you go to YouTube, I'm John's Longbox, and if you go to Fund My Comic, look for Heroic Tales, you'll find my comic. And that, you know, I tried to stay positive. I tried to keep it about comics. I fail sometimes. I'm not too proud of. I got dragged down. I dragged myself down and argued with a few people and instantly regretted it. You know, but I try to do better.
We've all been there, man.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I
It's
mean,
the internet. Drama is
you knew
so
me
easy.
from like 2005 to 2010. All I did was argue with people on the internet.
That's the mark of the nerd.
Yeah. What do you mean Captain Marvel could beat Superman? What are you, stupid? Yeah.
And if you're interested in following my things, I am Dr. Crow Carnival here on YouTube, on Twitter, and Blue Sky. You can find me all those locations. I stream Tuesday and Thursday with my digital assistant Laurie. We're playing Skyrim right now.
Oh, cool.
Obviously, no stream this Thursday because it's Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Saturdays I play D&D with my friends Nick Brown.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Snare.
You play D&D?
Oh yeah, we're coming up on
We
the
can
end of
talk
our.
about that for another 2 hours if you want.
Hey, get ready for this. We're coming to the end of our 3-year pirate theme
Holy
campaign.
mackerel! I got to applaud that because that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we're actually coming to the end of the whole story. They just beat the necromancer, who's been a pain in the butt for like a year and a half for
You
them.
run the game, or are you a player?
I am the dungeon master.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Good. Oh man, that is an achievement. When I was saying I lived in Queens, I had a 5-year campaign going,
Mhm.
and it crossed worlds. There was a fantasy campaign, and then there was a superhero world, and they actually interacted. And we were 2 sessions away from finishing up the main story. COVID happened. We got into political fights because I refused to wear a mask. I'm not sitting in my house playing a role-playing game in a freaking mask. So I'm a bad guy, and we never got to finish the story. And that's one of the things that made me want to make my comic, because I want to finish that story in this comic. I thought it was going to be a brilliant story, and I'm so mad.
Oh, that hurts on the inside.
Yeah, I know.
That hurts in the arteries right there. Yes, we stream Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Sundays, I'm either interviewing people for their comics or creative projects, or I'm painting Warhammer minis or doing art, practicing art myself.
I got a Patriarch mini that I'm gonna paint and sell people too.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, plenty of things to do. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for John for coming on to the show.
Can I just ask you a quick question? What edition D&D do you play?
We're playing 5th. I got started with 5th, and I've come to really not like 5th edition. So, and especially after everything that happened with Wizards of the Coast last year, with the OGL debacle and just how the behavior of what they're doing with Gygax and everything is like,
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, I hope Elon Musk buys D&D. I stopped. He's talking about it on Twitter, so you never know. But I stopped buying D&D stuff at 2nd edition. But anyway, I could derail and talk to you forever. So
Yeah, once we're done with this, we're moving on to Pathfinder 1st edition for the next game. So basically, I said this is going to be my last 5th edition game. We started this before all that went down, so it's like we're stick with it rather than just learn a new system halfway through.
those for finishing a campaign. I finished 1 2-year campaign in college. I remember Thaco. There you go.
They found an orc named Thaco once. That was fun.
You know what's funny? I think I'm going to make a monster named Thaco and put him in my comics, see if anybody remembers.
All right. Well, that's going to do it from me here at the Carnival. I'm Dr. Crow. I read a book once,
Fun.
and it's my goal to make you smile. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.